The laugh. Sure, he's got something fascinating up his sleeve. Huh. A rock and a hard place, eh? Nice. Bodoro. Gitaraku.
最終試験が行われる会場へと移動していた。
That's a great shot. Oh, look at this.
ゆっくり休めたかな。ここは委員会が経営するホテルじゃ。すべての試合が終了するまで君たちの貸し切りとなっておる。
ってことは、勝ち残った最後の一人だけが合格ってわけか。
いや、
It's not a limit.
たった一生で合格である。
Yeah, because
一生で？
じゃあこのトーナメントは
勝った者が次々と抜けていき、負けた者が上に登っていくシステム。
okay.
つまり、この表の頂点は不合格を意味するのじゃ。
So you're going to have 8 new hunters.
要するに不合格はたった一人ってわけだ。
さよう。
Interesting. But I'm sure the bracket itself is really quite fascinating. Oh, Kurapika and Hisoka. Hanzo. He's not a pushover, Hanzo. He adds a lot of levity, but you know, he's skilled, really quite skilled. That potential Phantom Troop angle, Kurapika and Hisoka.
なかなかの力作じゃろ。何しろ誰にでも2回以上勝つチャンスが与えら
But
れている
this, the bracket on the left, there's
でも例えば294番と
5 chances, yeah.
5回もチャンスがあるぜ。
この組み合わせは今まで行われた試験の成績をもとに決められておる。
I mean, it makes sense that they're tracking it.
成績のいいものにチャンスが多く与えられているということ
So Hanzo and Gon.
それって納得いかないな。もっと詳しく点数の付け方とか教えてよ。
Fair enough.
なんでだよ。
採点内容は極秘事項でな。じゃがまあやり方ぐらいは教
Good,
え
good.
てやろう。
Let's hear it.
まず審査基準。これは大きく3つ。身体能力値、精神能力値、そして印象値からなる。
Okay, makes sense.
身体能力値は敏捷性、柔軟性、耐久力、五感能力などの総合値よ。
Yeah.
精神能力値は耐久性、柔軟性、判断力、想像力などの総合値を示す。
Yeah, Gon certainly ranks highly on a lot of those things.
最終試験まで残ったのだから何をか言わんやじゃ。
The proof is in the pudding, right? All 9
し
made
か
it.
し重要なのは印象値。これはすなわち前に挙げた値では測れない何か。それと諸君らの生の声と
The interviews from the last episode come into play as well.
試験の
And
結果なら
examiners.
俺の方が上のはず。
Oh,
資質で俺がゴンに劣っている。
oh, look at this. A little bit of insecurity coming out.
武器を受け
The rules of engagement.
相手に参ったと言わせれば勝ちじゃ。ただし相手を死に至らしめてしまった者は即失格。
So they have to admit defeat. But yeah, you know, Killua. Interesting. I don't know. Maybe a tad bit of jealousy, maybe, but mainly I thought it's more so, you know, his ability coming under question. That kind of had him a little bit concerned. Maybe it kind of goes back to his family as well, right? His treatment. And the reason he stepped out. One of the reasons, perhaps. Look at this. Crazy. Gone, my boy. Prepare yourself. This dude. Oh, I love this track. It actually reminds me of Birdman. Might be a bit of a niche reference.
4次試験の間ずっと俺をつけてたろ。お気づ
What?
きでしたか。当然よ。
Ah.
4次試験では受験者一人一人に試験官がついてたんだ。
Gon seemed a little bit surprised
まあ
though.
他の連中も気づいていたとは思うがな。
全然知らなかった。もちろん気づいてたけど。
Huh.
あえて言うこともないと思っていたんだが。
He didn't notice.
なもん気づくわけねえだろ。
Yeah, interesting. Makes sense. I guess they kind of have to keep track of their performances out there.
勝つ条件は参ったと言わせるしかないん
Yeah,
だ。
that's not going to be easy.
気絶させてもカウントは取らない。TKO もなし。それだけです。
That's interesting. Clearly by design as well.
こい
This
つ
is
は
not a
ちょ
little
っと
dude who
厄介
quits.
かもな。
Yeah, I'm thinking of how Gon could potentially make him surrender. I'm not... Or how he could even make Gon surrender. A lot of interested onlookers. Oh, yes. Ooh.
大方は主に自信ありってとこか。
Wow. Oh, God. Yeah.
俺なら軽く避けられるぜ。
Interesting. Oh, he hit him. That was like a pinpoint strike.
普通の決闘ならこれで勝負ありなんだ。
But it's not.
脳みそがぐるんぐるん揺れるように打ったからな。
Yeah, I saw the first
あわ
person
歴然だ。
perspective there.
早いとこギブアップしちまいな。
No, not that easily. Ooh.
今なら次の試合に影響は少ない。意地張ってもいいことなんか一つもないぜ。さっさと言っちまいな。
I mean, it is kind of logical, isn't it? But
誰が言うもんか。
it's not in God's nature, as I've learned. And he's certainly not treating him like a kid, even though he understands that's a kid.
次があるんだぞ。ここは。
He's got more than one chance,
お
though.
前がゴンの立場なら参ったと言えるか。
死んでも言うかよ。
じゃあゴンも同じだ。
分かってる。分かってるよ。
But as a friend, it's tough to
ファイト
watch.
するしかねえだろ。
矛盾だらけだが気持ちはよくわかる。
Still logical, Kurapika.
ここは引けゴン。自滅するぞ。気軽に参ったなんて言えるやつがこ
Yeah.
こまで残れるわけがないじゃないの。
Exactly.
確かに。
あの
I
子
feel like-
やばいわよ。
Hanzo, he's still kind of going easy on him, I think. He saw Gon in action firsthand. His tenacity. Oh, God.
3時間
What?
逃げとも出なくなっておるぞ。
Great shot.
起きろ。
俺が代わりに相手してやるぜ。
見るに耐えないなら消えろよ。これからもっとひどくなるぜ。
Yeah. I think there's much more he can do if he wants to.
この状況であなたが手を出せ
So
ば
these are the trackers,
失格
eh?
になるのはゴン選手ですよ。
It's interesting who noticed them and who didn't. Oh!
腕を折る。
Oh.
言っちま
I
え。
think he'll do it.
参ったと。
He's not gonna do it. Oh, I have goosebumps still
マジで折りやがった
because of the score, because of just the situation. This is also by design, isn't it? Oh, I didn't see Karpika's.
何かしやがったら軍には悪いが抑えきれねえ。
止める。私がか。大丈夫だ。おそらくそれはない。
忍法という特殊技術を身につけるため、
It's a bit of a different level.
さまざまな厳しい訓練を課せられてきた。休むことなく肉体を鍛え、技を磨いてきた。
Beautiful shots.
悪いことは言わねえ。
I got that feeling earlier.
素直に負
It's
けを
kind of going easy. Oh! He left himself open there.
痛
They're
み
riding.
の長いおしゃべりで頭は少し回復してきたぞ。
よっしゃー。もう行け。蹴って蹴って蹴りまくれ。
That's a proper hype man. Kind of looks like Arabic, doesn't it?
この対決はどっちが強いかじゃない。最後に参ったっていうか言わないかだもんね。
If Gon isn't being logical, maybe Hanzo might end up being logical.
分かってねえぜお前。
I think he might have.
忠告してるんじゃない。
He did leave himself
してる
open.
んだぜ。足を切り落とす。二度とつかないように。参ったと言ってくれ。
Not happening.
それは困る。足を切られちゃうのは嫌だ。でも
Naturally.
降参するのも
Ah.
だからもっと別のやり方で
Ah.
勝手に進行せんじゃねえよ。舐めてんのか？その足マジで叩っ切れてこら。
I love Hanzo.
それでも俺は参ったとは言わない。それに
My god.
そしたら血がいっぱい出て俺は死んじゃうよ。だから考えようよ。全く
Look at this.
なんだよ、現状は何も変わってない。ゴンがあいつより強くなったわけでも折れた腕がくっついたわけでも何でもない。なのになんでさっきまでのあの殺伐とした空気が一緒にしてこんな
Yeah.
に緩んじまうんだ。
やっぱりお前は何にも分かっちゃいねえ。俺はここでお前を死なしちまっても来年またチャレンジすればいいだけの話だ。俺とお前は対等じゃね
Yeah,
えん
it's
だ。
only disqualification. You don't get arrested or anything for killing someone here.
その差をこの場でなんて埋められっこない。
Hold on. Give him a chance. Let's
実
see.
力差が全てなんだ。
Perhaps, but let's see. Defiant. Look at this.
それで来年また挑戦すればいいじゃねえか。
It's just not his. It's not in his
命よりも
nature.
意地が大切だってのか。そんなことでくたばって本当に満足か。
Yeah, he is really quite prideful, as I learned recently.
親父に会いに行くんだ。
Wow.
親父。
親父はハンターをしている。だから俺は親父みたいなハンターになって親父に会うんだ。
And if I quit now, do I deserve to even be on that hunt?
いつか会えると信じてる。
I think Hanzo's beginning to realize
死ぬんだぜ。
that he's not gonna get him to surrender. Still
理
defiant.
屈じゃねえんだな。
Yeah, you got that right.
参った。俺の負けだ。
That's the natural
俺には
conclusion
お
of
前は
this.
殺せねえ。かといってお前に参ったと言わせる術も
I love his voice acting.
そんなのダメだよ。
He doesn't want to be handed
どうや
a.
って勝負するか決めようよ。
てめえはどんな勝負しようが参ったなんて言わねえよ。
だからってこんな風に勝っても全然嬉しくないよ。
As I've come to learn,
その上でお前が気持ちよく勝てるような勝負方法を一緒に考えろと。こういうことか？俺の負けだ。2回戦に行くぜ。
了解しました。
そいつが目覚めたらきっと合格は事
knocked him out?
ぜ。一度決めたら意志の強さは見ての通りだ。ゴンが不合格なら俺たちのこの後の戦いは全て無意味になるんじゃないかな。
たった一人の不合格者を決める最終試験はまだ始まったばかりだ。
it's a good start. It's a good start. Okay, episode 19. I mean, first of all, look at that. Gon is now a certified hunter, a licensed hunter. I mean, he is officially a hunter. He passed, right? I mean, of course, it's a long story, of course, but ultimately, at the end of the day, even if he might kind of be a little bit upset about how it happened, he is now officially licensed, right? Unless, of course, something else happens down the line. But as of this point, as far as I know, he is now a hunter, right? So, this is essentially the first major step in terms of, going after his father, trying to locate his father, trying to reconnect with his father, or perhaps connect altogether for the first time, essentially, right? So, of course, that is at play in this episode as well, as he kind of declares that openly, right? His own friends, people like Kurapika and Leorio and Killua, they get to hear about this, and then of course everyone else, even Hanzo. I think that plays a part as well. I mean, listen, Hanzo is just so fantastic in this episode, right? Initially set up as this comedic character, but even so, back then in episode 4, I believe, or maybe episode 3. I mean, it's around the time they introduce characters like Hisoka, Killua, right? And then, of course, Hanzo and Nicholas and the brothers and all of that. But, Hanzo initially kind of introduced as this comedic relief character. But at a moment's notice, right, you see that there is a serious side to him. And this is as Tonpa is kind of making the rounds, and he finds out, yeah, the rookies are a little bit different this year, right? So yeah, since then I've loved any glimpses of Hanzo, right? I saw him at the bottom of Trick Tower. I saw him much more recently getting the wrong tag from Killua because Killua switched him, right? But ultimately it didn't matter. He ended up getting the 6 points anyways. So yeah, a lot of fun moments, right? So I like Hanzo, right? To me, it wasn't really a case of, oh my god, look at him just absolutely laying into Gon. I hate this guy. You can't look at it from that perspective. It's nothing personal, right? It's not. So, I wasn't really going into that fight or that matchup. It's more so than just a fight, right? Those are kind of like the optics of it. Because ultimately, this tournament that the chairman has set up and the bracket itself, quite a fascinating bracket. And it's also a bracket that clearly allows for strategy. And I feel that that's also by design. The chairman took that into account as well, I believe. But going back to my point about the optics of this tournament, ultimately, or essentially, to me, it felt like more of a test of endurance, a test of honor and willpower, and that it's kind of masked behind that front of a good old-fashioned tournament. And the fact that the opponent has to actually surrender, or anyone who is a part of this has to surrender, my goodness, again, something else that is clearly by design because, as you'll have to excuse me, I cannot remember her name. She said, yeah, the chairman's up to his old tricks, right? He's having a lot of fun here. These are the final 9, the best of the best from this year's crop, right? So they know, she knows, all of them know, it's not going to be easy for any of them to just surrender, right? But it made it so, you as a potential, hunter, future hunter, or, a participant, you yourself has to be responsible for ending that pursuit. At least this year, for this year. It has to come out of your own mouth in the form of a surrender, right? So yeah, it's clearly a lot of exciting setup. It is. And the chairman, of course, he's got a really likable and gentle disposition as well, of course. But, there's clearly so much going on behind that mask. This is an old timer. This man has been around for a long time. He's experienced. He is formidable. Perhaps, I don't think it's a far-fetched notion to even believe that he might be the most formidable hunter or, I don't know, opponent or fighter in that location altogether. That is a possibility. But yeah, going back to the notion of bracket strategy coming into play, I'm sure many of them have already kind of formulated a plan of action, right? Because they also get access to the bracket itself. And the bracket itself is broken down based on the, perception of the selection committee or, ultimately the chairman as a whole, because he makes the final call, right? He drew up the bracket based on everything he got, all the information he got. Right, the interviews much more recently in the last episode, opinions of the examiners, and then of course, this new edition. It's not new per se, but it's new to us, the audience, right? This revelation about them being followed, right? These judges who I thought could have been security at first, but at least one of them is acting as a referee. But as expected, the usual suspects knew all about it. They knew they are being tailed, that there is this other presence around them. People like Hanzo. There's quite a fun moment there, as he's like, it's you again. I remember you from the island as you tracked me and, really quite diligently reported my performance, right? And it got me this fantastic seeding in the sense that he gets 5 shots at it, right, alongside Gon. Hanzo and Gon are the two most, not decorated, that's not the right term, the ones that are essentially considered the most impressive as far as performance goes over all the phases, right? And for that reason, they are afforded 5 different shots at it. Of course, not everyone is a fan of that, right? And then, of course, you have people that end up on the opposite side of that type of setup. You've got Leorio, who's got 2 shots at it, I believe. And then you also have Hisoka's associate, who also has 2 shots at it, right? So everyone else, all the participants see this. They essentially get this report on their fellow participants, even if they themselves didn't really know much about them out there in the field. But now, based on the rankings and the setup and the bracket setup itself, they can see who they could potentially target and have maybe a better chance against, right? You don't have to immediately, get the win in your first matchup, right? Again, that's also kind of based on your personality. But yeah, that doesn't mean that the others are not open to just kind of forfeiting their first match or their first matchup to kind of go into the next one as a much better setup for themselves. So of course, someone like Leorio could be targeted, right? Given his standing and given the fact that he's only given the 2 chances. But then there's also the potential for it to backfire if someone chooses to target Hisoka's associate. I know they gave me his name and I tried the name, but I'm not going to try it again. I need to hear it a few more times. But the thing is, that might not actually even be his real name. Now imagine someone thinking, oh, okay, I can go up against this guy, this, android looking fellow. But it turns out that this guy is actually essentially one of the most formidable remaining participants alongside Hisoka, right? I'm not sure. He actually might be on the same level as Hisoka as far as, combat ability goes, as far as danger, the danger aspect of it goes, the things they are capable of, though, of course, they're not allowed to kill. But, that being said, I don't think them not being allowed to kill is them trying to be ethical or anything. I think it's actually more to do with the fact that, if you remove that aspect of it, it makes for these really tense and strange and uncomfortable situations, right? It opens it up to stuff like prolonged torture, prolonged beatdowns, right? I saw a 3-hour plus beatdown of Gon by the hands of Hanzo. And, honestly, I still believe that at the end of the day, Hanzo kind of did go easy on Gon. Even if he did break his arm, even if he really, laid into him for 3 hours, this man is a trained ninja since the day he was born. But yeah, going back to Hisoka's associate, perhaps this is exactly how he wanted it to play out, right? He's been trying to keep a low profile. And of course, his true identity is still kind of under wraps. Only us, the audience, and Hisoka really knows about it, right? So yeah, perhaps it's been a strategy since the beginning to keep it under wraps. I mean, he's been really quite successful at going under the radar. Flying under the radar, rather. And at the heart of it, just the notion of the bracket system, it's so exciting, isn't it? At least it is to me. It's always been an exciting thing to me because it really brings about this fun discussion about the possibilities and how it progresses and all the different permutations and the matchups. It's so exciting. And once again, I do have to mention Pride FC because, back in its glory days, one of the things it was most known for was the tournament arc, the tournaments that it used to stage. They used to do those 16-man tournaments, hell, on a few occasions, I think twice, in 2000, and then I believe in 2006, they did like an open tournament, right? It did not matter if you are 150 pounds, 300 pounds, or anything in between, because it was an open tournament. Crazy, I know, it's crazy. Something like that could not fly in this day and age. But yeah, I've got the bracket open in front of me right now. I'm looking at it from the left. You've got Hanzo and Gon, right? Just saw that happen. Hanzo has to move on to the next stage, to the next chance. And Gon is now officially a hunter, right? So next up, it looks like it's Hanzo and Pokel. And then to Killua's right, you've got Hisoka's associate, right? Who only gets 2 shots at it. And then on the other side of the bracket, you've got Kurapika and Hisoka. Ooh, interesting one, isn't it? Really quite interesting. And, I thought Kurapika's reaction and even Hisoka's reaction really quite similar, right? Neither one of them really had any reaction to it, at least on the outside. I mean, Hisoka, of course, I think that's the exact reaction he's going to have even on the inside. But I think Kurapika might be... Yeah, I'm sure he's thinking. Inside, he's certainly thinking about this matchup because he knows he's had a few run-ins with Hisoka. The first time around, he was more than happy to run out of there, right? That he thought it was smart, and it was smart to not engage. But the second time, he held his ground, and then, of course, that kind of registered Kurapika on Hisoka's radar as well, right? Back in the forest, in the last phase, a few episodes ago. This is around the time Hisoka is just having his moment in the forest by the tree, right? As he's having flashes of both Leorio and Kurapika. But yeah, interesting one, I'm not sure if Kurapika is actually going to even engage. There's a possibility that Kurapika might actually decide that no, I'll give it up and I'll go to the next fight, right? And the next fight looks to be Bororo. Maybe he'll think that he's got a better chance against Bororo. But ultimately, Leorio is going to have to face one of those three: Bororo, Kurapika, or Hisoka, right? But I mean, the thing is, it's the loser that goes up the bracket. So I don't know, I cannot see Hisoka getting to that point unless he makes the choice to get to that point so he can go up against Leorio. But then again, I know all about Hisoka and his stance on, not wanting to fight someone before they've fulfilled their potential. And he does see potential in Leorio. It's been established. And, the same goes for Kurapika. But, the thing is, he has been matched up with Kurapika. So it'll be interesting to see how Hisoka actually approaches this as well. Because realistically speaking, Bororo is probably someone Hisoka might be open to fighting, in the sense that, okay, yeah, this man is clearly established. He is the final product, right? He is kind of the best version of himself at this point. But yeah, I'll leave it at that for now in terms of the bracket, because I feel like I can go all day in terms of fun permutations and all of that. And I'm sure I'll get more chances in the next few episodes, because it looks like it'll take at least a few episodes to get through all of these, right? I'm excited. I'm really quite excited about this because, it's such a fantastic twist on the traditional tournament arc. And also, I love that Netero actually explained it in great detail how exactly they got to these conclusions, right? How the seeding happened, how, some of these individuals, Hanzo and Gon specifically in this case, are given so many chances and ranked so highly. Right? Though, of course, you see Killua's reaction. I get to see a different side of Killua. I mean, it's really quite a fascinating insight into Killua and his internal monologue and how he kind of perceives all of this, right? To me, it immediately felt like he feels that, that his ability has been questioned. That, this idea of Gon being looked at as someone who has much more potential as a hunter than himself, that kind of bruised his ego, didn't it? It did. It's interesting. And, if you compare his reactions to Kurapika and Leorio's, he's really quite indifferent. He's not really showing much concern for Gon. And he's really kind of looking at it through a critical lens, right? He's taking mental jabs at Gon's performance in every single move that Gon is making or not making. Anytime Gon kind of, receives a blow or is not able to dodge a blow, you'll see Killua immediately say, oh, I would have easily dodged that, right? He's kind of pitting himself against Gon's performance at that moment. So sure, I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but I think there is a little bit of jealousy there. There is. And, he's the same age as Gon. Let's not forget that either. He's a kid as well. Yes, he feels like he's a little bit more mature, perhaps. I don't know about mature, but more established, more experience out there in the real world, perhaps. And just, his upbringing and all of that. But you see that he's not immune to these feelings and these thoughts. And, to me, it also kind of felt like maybe there is something that is pre-existing within Killua. This notion of his ability being questioned, perhaps, or being looked down on. Maybe this is something he was used to back around the time he used to be with his family. Right? They certainly set up that it wasn't the most loving and caring family. I mean, I don't know, maybe it is, maybe in their own twisted way. Ooh, actually, I kind of want to go back to the bracket and the strategic element of it. What if someone actually doesn't want someone else to become a hunter? Right? Maybe they want to face them for that reason as well. And then perhaps maybe someone might forfeit their matches to actually get to that person. Right? To block that person, perhaps. I brought up this possibility of there being something much bigger at play, perhaps, in terms of both Hisoka and his associate targeting Killua. Or maybe not targeting, but saying that they do have their eyes set on Killua, right? That was something that stood out to me in the last episode. So yeah, if you look at it from that perspective, there is a possibility that Hisoka's associate might actually get to meet Killua in that bracket on the left side. The possibility is there. And then maybe at that point, maybe I could get a bit more of insight in terms of, why exactly this man, Hisoka's associate, took an interest in Killua, right? And maybe that'll explain, why exactly Hisoka also has an interest in Killua. Let's see. These are the exciting permutations and possibilities that come into play, especially based on past episodes as well, right? The information that's given to me just really quite recently in the last episode. But going back to Killua, you see that he's not really quite able to understand, why exactly Gon is so endearing to so many of these people, to most of these people in that room. He did not understand the shift in the atmosphere at that point. From the brutal atmosphere, all that tension, to just more of a lighthearted atmosphere all of a sudden, after Gon is able to kind of, bounce back and kind of actually approach it in a really, really Gon fashion. But I think this is going to be a learning experience for Killua as well, because, you see that he looks at it through quite a specific lens, right? He's kind of hung up on, oh, my ability is far superior than Gon's at this moment, everything, my strength, my capabilities as a fighter, as an opponent, everything as a potential hunter, it is far superior than Gon's ability or potential, right? He's not able to look beyond that aspect of it, but there's just so much more to it than that. And they make it really quite clear that Gon is completely out of his depth. It's a mismatch, but through his grit, his determination, his stubbornness, right? I think you can even kind of look at it as a character flaw. I think it actually is being presented as a character flaw. It's on display for everyone to see, actually, not just for us, the audience, right? You've got people like Kurapika who can pick up on this, who's already kind of picked up on the fact that, this kid, Gon is really interesting and really quite special, right? And really quite unique in how he thinks and how he carries himself. But yeah, you see that it's all put out there. So essentially, it really felt like a bit of a different take on the typical headstrong shonen protagonist. You see that Hanzo notices this, right? He even said something really quite crucial, didn't he? I think it was something like, is your pride all you care about, right? Even more so than your life. Are you really willing to die for something like that? And I think it's quite clear that, yeah, Gon was ready to die for it. He was, right? So I think ultimately Gon has to find the right balance, right? He cannot take it to this extreme, right? It's a detriment to his life, to his health. This beating he took, think about it. The punishment that Hanzo is dishing out, even if I think he's going easy, he's still doing quite a bit of damage to his actual body, right? To Gon's health, long-term health perhaps even, right? Broke his arm, this pinpoint accurate strike that he keeps landing, that's meant to be this jarring sensation that sends your brain all loopy, right? That can have a lasting impact. But Gon is not thinking about the big picture. He's not thinking about any of that. His recklessness and his stubbornness is kind of displayed in a totally different light in this one. Like I said, it's a detriment. It's a potential detriment to his health and his life. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops as the story progresses, as the character arc progresses, right? Right now, I'm already thinking about the end game of this anime, right? And I'm really kind of excited about Gon's growth and seeing if there's growth, actually, seeing if he does kind of understand this about himself at some point, if he learns from experiences, from mistakes, perhaps. I'm sure there's going to be many more mistakes down the line. Gon's resilience has been something that's been a standout right since the beginning of the series, of the anime, right? It's something that many of these characters have noticed. His friends, the chairman, the examiners, all of them, right? The chairman specifically really got to see Gon's defiant and resilient attitude and nature in action, right? That he's got this never say die attitude until he kind of, figures it out, or he accomplishes the goal at hand. But here you see, and I do think it is by design, that Gon's resilience is kind of presented as, I don't know, a form of madness even, right? It's a yin and yang situation. There's two sides to that coin. Against pain, against reason, against the actual legitimate threat of death, he chooses to persevere, right? That is just completely reckless. It's totally reckless. But the thing is, he gets away with it, right? He does it. Somehow he pulls it off here, right? But sooner or later, I feel like sooner or later, he might not get away with it. Sooner or later, he might land himself in a situation that is going to be quite a setback. And yeah, I could see something major at some point because of this attitude of his. And the thing is, my God, Hanzo has essentially beaten Gon a dozen times over at this point. Even after he gives up, you see the selfish side of Gon come out. He's like, nope, I do not accept that because that is not how I want the W, right? He wants it to be perfect. He wants it to be fair. So yeah, Gon it's a fantastic character already. But yeah, going back to the reactions of Gon's friends, I kind of touched upon Killua's reactions. Let's kind of focus on Leorio and Kurapika's, right? You see that by the end of it, even Kurapika's scarlet eyes made an appearance, right? That is something. That is something, isn't it? That it got to that point, right? You see at the beginning, he's the one who's trying to remain calm and trying to calm Leorio down as well. He essentially goes from the one that is cautioning Leorio, right? He's the one that's cool-headed about it, even though, inside he is hurting. He is kind of really struggling to see Gon go through this. Where 3 hours is insane, right? Gon is just insane, okay? Gon is just crazy. the things this little dude is capable of. But yeah, it once again kind of reiterates Kurapika's character, doesn't it? That Hanzo's brutality towards one of his good friends at this point, someone he really truly cares for, and kind of considers a bit of like a younger brother, a younger sibling, even at this point. You kind of get an understanding of his stance on injustice and bullying, right? And that ultimately he's this really incredibly decent guy, and just how much he cares about protecting the well-being of his friends and the people he cares for, right? So again, tying it all back to him losing his clan, oh my God, right? The rage that burns within, you get a better understanding for that as the episodes go by. But yeah, at one point, both Kurapika and Leorio are more than ready to be disqualified because they're that close to jumping in, right? That right there, those are true friends. And going back to Killua, I think down the line he'll come to kind of regret the feelings he's having at the moment about Gon, especially because Gon is always going to be supportive of him. I cannot see a situation that could have Gon looking at Killua through that lens, through that critical lens, perhaps, that envious lens, right? He respects Killua quite a bit. He thinks he's so cool. And this notion of Gon putting it out there that I'm going to go see my dad, right? That I'm going to find him. I'm going to become a hunter and I'm going to locate him. See, this never say die attitude, this perseverance, this recklessness, essentially, right? And I don't know, grit and determination. To me, it feels like it comes from this notion of him feeling that, him quitting, him giving up is going to make him feel worthless. And he cannot afford to feel worthless. He simply cannot. But yeah, I think that should do it for this one, folks. Really, really quite enjoyable, right? I had a really enjoyable discussion about this episode as well. And I hope it continues. I certainly hope it continues. I mean, it's really quite engaging, isn't it? But yeah, if you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you are interested in early access to the next few episodes right now, a handful of episodes, or perhaps full opacity, or maybe even timer-based full length, consider checking out the Patreon page. The links are in the description and the pinned comment. So consider potentially supporting the channel. But also, you can support the channel just by liking or dropping a comment. That truly does help. I've looked into it and yeah, it apparently does help. I spent a lot of years not caring about that as a content creator. But then, once I found out that it does actually help, it's simple as that. You can do just that to support the channel if you really do appreciate my content. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me, folks, and thank you for your time, because time is precious. And I really do hope to see you again soon for episode 20. Until then, take it easy.